I would like to take a few minutes and discuss the Keystone XL Pipeline and its potential benefits and pitfalls as they pertain to the state of Montana. The Keystone XL Pipeline, as proposed by TransCanada, will cover 1,179 miles, starting in Hardisty, Alberta, and meeting up with the Gulf Coast Pipeline in Still City, Nebraska. Why is this important to us in Montana, you ask? Well, this pipeline has the potential to move 35 million gallons of oil per day. That's a lot of oil being moved across our land and water. There are many supporters and opponents of this project. Opponents say that the oil coming from the oil sands in Alberta is the dirtiest oil on the planet and results in more greenhouse emissions. The Keystone website has a quote from Faith Burrell, chief economist of International Energy Agency, saying that the additional contribution of greenhouse gases coming from the oil sands in Canada is less than 1 day of CO2 emissions in China. She goes on to say that not only is it less than 1 day, it's less than a couple hours of emissions in China. However, the Nonpartisan Congressional Research Service surveyed published scientific literature on the subject, and those studies found that getting Canadian bitumen produced and processed into fuel produces between 70% and 110% more greenhouse gas emissions than the weighted average of transportation fuels now used in the U.S. However, once it is in the tank, gasoline or diesel fuel that comes from the Canadian bitumen is no different than fuel from any other form of petroleum, and burning the fuel in a car or truck engine produces a lot more emissions than producing it and getting it to the pump. So, over the entire life cycle of a fuel, from ground to tailpipe, burning a gallon of fuel from the Canadian oil results in 14 to 20% more greenhouse gas emissions on average than burning a gallon of currently available fuel. Safety is another concern of building this pipeline. Opponents of the pipeline say that the oil from the oil sands is more corrosive and means that the potential for failure is higher. In an article published by Popular Science, they say that an oil spill will happen. They say that in the past 2 decades, more than 1 million barrels from approximately 50,000 miles of U.S. crude pipelines has spilled or leaked. And if the spill rate per mile is the same for the Keystone Pipeline, then they estimate that 10,000 barrels will be spilled in a decade. Supporters say that the modern technology would make this risk lower. The Keystone website says that this would be one of the safest pipelines ever built and lists, among other things, puncture resistance, corrosion resistant coatings, automatic shutoff valves, and 100% weld inspections as some of their safety features. One of the biggest claims to go ahead with this project, at least in my opinion, is their claim of the job creation. The U.S. State Department even estimates that they would create 42,100 jobs during the construction, but that only 50 workers would be required to operate the pipeline. The Keystone website agrees with the estimated total jobs created, but they don't say how many would be required to operate the pipeline or how long these jobs would last. They say that building the Keystone XL Pipeline through Nebraska, South Dakota, and Montana is expected to create millions of hours of labor. These hours represent real jobs and are critical to helping American families qualify for health insurance, retirement benefits, and improve their quality of life. So far, President Obama has vetoed building the pipeline, but that doesn't mean the oil has stopped flowing from Canada. It still enters the U.S. by rail, and that does not require presidential approval. And since President Obama has vetoed the pipeline, those rail shipments have seen huge increases. So why do we care? If the oil is still going to get into the U.S. and that's not likely to stop, what is the point? Why not just build the pipeline? If the pipeline were built, it would cover a significant portion of eastern Montana. There are many rivers and streams that it would have to go through. On January 19th of 2015, an oil pipeline leaked an estimated 1,200 barrels of oil into the Yellowstone River near Glendive, contaminating the drinking water of about 6,000 people. Because the oil spill occurred in January, cleanup was significantly more difficult as the oil was under layers of ice. This oil spill was just one of 10 oil and gas pipeline accidents that have occurred so far this year, according to Wikipedia. Pipelines are dangerous, but tanker cars are more so. Rail accidents spilled more oil in the U.S. last year than in all previous years on record combined. So what do? Pipelines are dangerous and can harm the environment, but they can also be an economic windfall for many communities. Our country still wants and needs oil. Until this changes, I think that we will have to continue to build pipelines, this one included eventually. TransCanada has applied and been approved for permits to build a man camp in Glasgow, Montana, in preparation of building the Keystone Pipeline in that area. And as one caller on Voices of Montana said, TransCanada is willing to wait until there is a new president who will allow for the building of the pipeline. They are that confident that they will eventually get this thing built. The only thing that we can do now is inform ourselves of the subject and make sure that our opinions are heard.